I'm Megan.
I'm Colin.
And this is
Pet Sitter Confessional,
an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter.
Brought to you by Time to Pet and Pet Sitters International. What does it mean to fail forward? And why is reading as a business owner so important? Today, Janie Budnick, owner of Four-Legged Kids, joins the show to talk about her 25 years in business. She shares what she's learned about how to be an excellent communicator and what it actually means to stay on mission for you and your business. Let's get started.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Colin and Megan, for having me on this show. Yes, my name is Janie Budnick with Four-Legged Kids. We are a business in St. Louis, Missouri, and we just celebrated our 25th anniversary in July. So I am an old dog officially.
And so 25 years ago, Janie, what was it about the pet sitting industry that you were like, that's what I need to be doing with my life?
Well, I got fired from my job. How does that sound for a starter?
It's pretty good. That's pretty,
Oh my goodness. I had been in the pet industry since I was 14 years old. I had the love of my life, Sunny Man. He was my orange tabby cat. I have a soft spot for orange tabbies. And he was my buddy. And he passed away, actually, diabetes, went into DKA, and the vet clinic was not able to save him. But it was that point in my life that I decided my purpose was pets, and actually started volunteering at that same veterinary clinic when I was 14. Originally planned on going to vet school, but when I tried to get into Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri, and they said, no, we want you to take some more science classes. I moved to St. Louis. I met my future husband. He was here. Vet school was there. And so one of those big changes in life was working at a vet clinic. And actually, I did get fired from my job. I was in between positions, had been doing some pet sitting on the side for clients of clinics that I worked at and managed. And one of them from California told me I should start my own business. And at that time I went, what? I mean, who wants to be a business owner? That sounds so incredibly boring. But look at me 25 years later. I am still married to the same person, and I still have that same business. So I'm doing something right.
Well, I think there are two foundational things there. One, you touched on the fact that after Sunny Man, you found that your purpose was pets. And then it sounds like you had a mind shift change around what it meant to be a business owner. So what was it? How did that grow on you over time? Because I know many people are in the same boat of they want to work with pets, but you say the word business or company or owner, and they kind of bristle a little bit. It doesn't quite fit them. They feel awkward saying those things. So how did that change for you?
Wow, that was a paradigm shift that happened over a period of time. It certainly was not instant. I found out after working for myself for a period of time that I was a lousy employee in the first place. So it was probably good that I became a business owner, which probably a lot of us, if we really look back, we see that, there is a certain type of person that is meant to be the, doer. And there is another type that is meant to be the, like, I'm the sayer. I create what there is to do. And I always was looking for making improvements wherever I was. So, that was probably why, my last position didn't work terribly well for me, is because I was always trying to make my own process improvements. So it really, it was a paradigm shift that I had to go through, especially as quickly as I had to hire in as I was growing, and everything that goes with that, being the one who is, of course, telling somebody else what to do, how to do things, how you want things done. So, you really start getting into a whole level of personal development and growth, going from the position of, I love pets and I'm going to do this so I can actually pay my rent, to, wow, this is a business, but I love pets and I know nothing about business and now I have to learn. So it is a huge shift, and you really have to have a growth mindset to tackle that head on.
Yeah, that growth mindset, knowing that everything is not static, that it can change. And that's where that creative part comes in. And it's really interesting that you touched on that, Janie, because I noticed that more and more of that there are the doers and there are the creators, just as you said there. When we are in our business, we are creating something that never had existed before. It kind of came, it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but it comes from within us and for the people that we surround ourselves with. And that is a very interesting process to start as you go through this paradigm shift, as you said, of like, oh, I'm just somebody who loves pets. Now I'm creating something around that passion and I'm shaping and molding what that looks like. And then you can step back and you get to look at what you've made. And I think many times we forget to appreciate what we have and that the work that we pour into it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of the most important things to me is celebrating my wins every day. That's part of my daily process. Sometimes when you're just in the messy middle of all the crap that can go on in our businesses each day, you don't take the time to really step back and say, wow, okay, like, look what I actually did, instead of focusing on those negative aspects of, oh my God, I just hired somebody and they turned out to be a complete donkey. And, just the day-to-day fires that we put out, we have to take a step back and look at that and really switch in our minds how we approach the things that are in our business every day, to find that positive and find that win. Even if something was totally crappy wrong, okay, I'm going to learn from that. And next time I won't do it that way. To me, that's a win, because now you've been able to make a decision and push the needle on your business to move it forward instead of focusing on, oh my God, I was a total failure today.
Well, being able to rebound from those lessons, those hard-won battles in both in our personal lives and our business. So, for people who may struggle with that kind of thing, what kind of advice would you give them to learn well from lessons and mistakes that they make?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I've got so many like little things, the little sayings out there that I just can. Yeah, almost like my mantra, fail forward is like a mantra that I have sometimes. Yeah. Understanding that in every failure is, of course, an equal opportunity, that we can always learn something out of the failures. I could probably almost write a book on failures, like the top 20 things to not do in your pet business. Hey, maybe I will write that book someday. So, because I have checked them off. That's why I enjoy helping other people in their businesses so much, because I've, pretty much written the book on how to screw up and rebound from it. So it's really just a transition to be able to take all of those, screw ups and realize that you might have failed, but that does not make you a failure. I don't know if any of the listeners follow Brené Brown, but I love her. I love her work on, talking about shame and things like that in your life, and realizing, from that perspective that, what you do, you might have, done something that was completely stupid, but you're not a stupid person. So it's separating the decisions that you make and the failures that you have from who you are, and not letting them actually define you.
So for you mentioned the top 20. Maybe could you give us one that was most impactful to you in your business, of a lesson that you feel like was the hardest lesson that you've learned in business?
Oh, I really have so many. I will totally throw myself under the bus on that one. So one that has been, it was a reoccurring theme for quite a long time. Of course, remember 25 years. So this, where we're talking at least over a decade here of this being a problem. And it's something that happened very early on, back in, of course, I started my business in 97. Back in 2000, I had purchased another business and, the hubris born of success. I had a successful pet care service. And so I bought another business and just figured, hey, I'm going to be successful in this one too. And so I had chosen one of my top go-getter pet sitters and told her, hey, I want you to manage the pet sitting company while I get this other company running. And instead of providing her with the tools that she needed and the resources that she needed and very specific, loving instructions on how I wanted her to do her job, I did what is called leadership by abdication, which meant I essentially threw it at her and ran. And that was a complete train wreck. I could go into that whole story, but it did not end well. And over the years of hiring other people into my company, trying management levels back at the beginning, assistant managers, schedulers, I had quite a long period of time. Sometimes I have to be hit upside the head with a frying pan before I realize that I need to change the way I do things. But instead of leading with integrity and bringing on an employee into a position where they are very clear on expectations, where they understand what they are supposed to do and what winning looks like in their position, I would think that I had explained it well, and I would just turn it over to someone expecting them to read my mind. So really developing myself over the years with my own education and understanding myself and understanding better how other people operate, I have had to course correct and learn how to lead. So that has probably been one of the, if I would say the 20 top things, that would rank up there in the top 3 is understanding how to lead, motivate people, to be clear. To be clear is to be kind, and making sure that you don't have expectations that other people aren't clear on.
Ooh, abdication. How many times in life do we do things through abdication, either, failure to act or not acting in fullness on what our responsibility actually is? And I think that's part of recognizing when I decide to bring somebody on, I have inherent responsibilities that are my part and role to fill. And if we don't think through all of those responsibilities, we are going to simply abdicate them away to the person that we hire. And then, look back and go, well, I don't understand what's going on. Well, you didn't give clear education, didn't give clear guidelines. Sometimes it happens with staff. Sometimes it happens with clients, especially new clients, and onboarding and, educating them on your policies. If you just leave things kind of up in the air, you do find yourselves in situations where they're not doing what you expected, and you're confused and frustrated, and they're confused and frustrated because nothing was ever nailed down.
Yeah, it's all that communication, the difference between abdication and actual delegation when you're talking to your team members. That maybe there are some people out there that they are gifted in that and being very clear in communication, but I think for the majority of us, it is a learned lesson.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Claire from Acton Critter Sitters has this to say.
Time to Pet has honestly revolutionized how we do business. My sitters can work much more independently because they have ongoing access to customer and pet information without relying on me. I save hours upon hours of administrative time on billing, processing payments, and generating paychecks.
If you are looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. For you, other than the hard lesson of having to experience with that, how have you learned to hone those delegation skills and learned how to communicate specifically what you're looking for?
Most of that has probably been learning about myself more than anything else, and learning and understanding my own communication style and how my communication style is not everybody else's communication style. It might be a no-brainer for some people, but it was honestly a massive realization for me. I really probably started evolving myself in business about 10 years ago, I would say. I don't know exactly, 10 to 12 years ago, through understanding the different types of personality assessments that are out there. I've said this in some of my videos before, but I had met a dear friend his company, he actually works with companies to get their management teams working better together. And he takes them through the DISC profile assessment, which is a personality assessment that's much like your Myers-Briggs or your Strengths Finder that people have you go through. I mean, goodness, in middle school, my kids, they sent all my kids through the Myers-Briggs, which I thought was fascinating. So, at least in school systems now, they're teaching personality assessments. I wish I would have had this when I was in middle school. I might have started things out in life very different. But with the company that we worked with and had the management team, went through that process, and I found out what my DISC assessment meant and what my strengths were. And it was stunning to me, actually, to find out that people don't process the way I do. I know it's intuitive to many of you, I'm sure, but for me, it was a real shocker. And my assessment style, Art, that was the man that did our company work. He said I was the equivalent of Attila the Hun, which was a little bit, I don't know. I think I was offended initially, but now it is just a joke between Art and I that, at least I started as Attila the Hun, but I've been able to understand through a lot of growth and development of myself how I can better listen to my people, understand my people, and love on my people to have a better team. So that is really where all of my work got started, was with myself and growing myself. A lot of intense reading. I'm a voracious reader, and being able to not just read, not just, buy every course out there, but actually assimilate things into what I am doing. It's like pulling a coat out of the closet, try it on. If it fits what you're doing, keep it, otherwise discard it. So, I am constantly out there trying to find more input. I don't know. I'm an 80s kid. So, people see my 80s references all the time, but, Short Circuit, loved that movie. And I'm like, Johnny 5, need more input. So, there's my official 80s reference for this episode of the Pet Sitter Confessional.
Link in the show notes for Johnny 5.
Right.
Short Circuit. Okay. Everyone would be very confused by that movie, mostly because it's a very confusing movie.
It is but that's the part I remember. Need more input.
Well, so you say you read broadly, and unfortunately, a lot of us aren't big readers. Why is you explained a little bit about that you read? Why is it important to read and read broadly for you?
Wow. It's funny because I have to stop and think when I actually read something that was actually fictional. Anything I would have read fictional recently would have actually been a business fable, which teaches you business principles through, a narrative story. So I don't really call that fiction. But to me, I have always loved reading. I was an only child, so I grew up with books as my best friends. I mean, along with Sunny Man. Sunny Man and I were always sitting in a corner somewhere reading books. So I've always enjoyed that. That was the basis of, just all my education in general, and just has stayed with me. I am constantly looking for new things to read, new subjects, new perspectives. I do have, some of you that might have already downloaded a link to my 50 favorite best business books. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. And, those are 50 of my favorites, but my bookshelf is insane between the actual physical books that I have and the books that I have on Audible. I love, if I am out doing something, just popping on an Audible and catching up on some good information. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for you to absorb that type of information. And there are just so many different subjects. I probably started my reading in the business arena between 10 and 15 years ago with the book EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey. I was reading some business books before then, but that one really turned me on to the just breadth of subject material and amazing authors, and helped me with that process. And also the EntreLeadership podcast. I don't even know if you can access some of the original podcasts that they did years ago anymore, but they would go through and they would interview authors, and I would hear, oh, wow, that sounds like some great information. And so I'd grab that book, and typically you will see anywhere from 4 to 6 different books that I'm trying to absorb at one time between Audible and physical books on my desk.
Well, reading broadly does a lot of things. It keeps you plugged in to changing information. It also helps expand your knowledge and ability to make connections and see and put yourself in situations that maybe you would never have experienced before. I think, traditionally it's, I'm in a fairyland with castles and ogres and things. But from a business perspective, I can read a story now about somebody who ran their business in a particular way. What if I were in their shoes? You start relating and getting access to different situations and scenarios and ways of thinking and modes of operating than you would have never come across before. And so it really does help kind of start engaging those creative juices in your business. Like getting back to those who create, that you need to pull from somewhere, and getting access to more information, like Johnny 5. Is important in doing new things.
Yes, and just expanding your possibilities. That is so important. Yes, we do take care of people's pets, but we don't want to limit what we can do with that. We don't want to be stuck within, I just want to be a 6-figure business. Well, why not be a 7-figure business? Why not have that be your goal? Why not, think of expanding into different areas of pet care? Or, there are a lot of people who just in growing their businesses are going into real estate investing. There are just so many possibilities. And I really think that being a reader takes you outside of your mind long enough for you to see what other possibilities there might be.
One thing about you, Janie, is that you have a very strong personality, and you see it in everything that you do. And I think one of those areas is the title that you've picked for yourself in running your company. So I'd love for you to describe the history and the story and meaning behind that.
God, I love that you say strong personality. No, my title is not Attila the Hun.
Sorry.
So, but hey, it all just kind of comes full circle, doesn't it? Well, whenever I started expanding into a management team, probably about 10 years ago, I just didn't want to have boring titles. I am the CEO. Yay, that's so exciting. So we ended up actually creating a format at the beginning for the management team and the office team, where at that point I was the dog. I was the DOG. I was the director of greatness. And my husband, who also is self-employed and works with me, he was the cat. He was the chief of all technical, because anytime somebody could not get into a house and there was a jam, or somehow the GFI had tripped and the freezer in the garage was a complete disaster because it had been off for 48 hours. He was the one that everybody would call. Chief of all technical. And then at that point, we also had a bird that was our billing and internal records director. She dealt with basically HR and the finances of the company. And then we also had our fish, who was our first impressions and schedule handler. Of course, she was the one that was answering the phone and was onboarding clients and was dealing with the scheduler for staff. So we've evolved that a little bit over the past year. My manager, I've elevated her into the general manager position. She does run the company for me on a day-to-day basis. And so I bequeathed to her the DOG title because she truly is my director of greatness. She is amazing. She is my right hand and my left hand. I don't know what I would do without Melanie, and I appreciate her so, so much. And I have moved myself into the cat position because, deep down in my heart, I love dogs, but at the end of the day, I want my cat next to me. So it fits me well, which has been molded a little bit to being the chief of all things, which I think tends to fit me well. So my current position title is the cat, the chief of all things in Four-Legged Kids.
I think words are important and titles are super important in our businesses as we view ourselves in the role that we play in them, and to not be afraid to have our personality and have that come through in not just how our business is formed, but how we talk about our business, the language that we use to refer to one another in the business, because it does start creating that culture in the company and the people we're interacting with. Now, when it comes to Four-Legged Kids, I would like for you to describe what your mission is as a company and why we need to have a mission in our businesses.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Mission is such a big thing for us. I was always very involved in rescue. I've done every part of rescue from, literally going to animal control and pulling the ones on death row and driving home with, 6 adults and 2 litters of puppies and vetting them myself and calling the fosters to come pick them up. I've been from that all the way to being on the board of the largest tri-state animal shelter. And there's so much to that. Really doesn't have to be focusing on local rescue, but having some sort of a purpose in your business that is bigger than you, removing yourself from it and having your team and your community united behind something that is beyond just the day-to-day services that you provide. In our case, our giving program, every service that we provide to our local community provides a meal to a sponsored rescue. This year, we have 2 different rescues that we are working with. One is Second Chance Rescue, which is an amazing group that deals with elderly and hospice dogs. They have their own adorable building where they all live together. They've got, some that are the bigger ones on one level, the littles are on another level, and they, of course, do adopt, but their commitment is to care for them through the end of life if necessary. So love that group. So happy to support them this year. They're a fairly new organization in St. Louis. And then we also have 10th Life Cat Rescue that has an amazing little place that they do have their cats available there. They have fosters, and we just love supporting those groups. We like to rotate it around because St. Louis is such a vibrant rescue community. We kind of have to be because of all the stupid puppy mills in Missouri. I think that was the worst known state in the United States for puppy mills. So, we work very hard to combat that and, work with spay and neuter programs. But, mission wise, that is what we do. And having that unifying factor in our company is super important because we track those numbers with our community on our website, and we track those numbers on a weekly basis with our staff. I want to make sure that the community is connected to what we do. We do have a lot of people who choose us because we are a 1-for-1 concept company. Every service provides a meal. And we have people that do choose us as the company for their pets because of that. But we also do want to make sure that our staff feels very in tune with that mission. So not only just letting them know what the numbers are every week, but making sure that just as our company culture, we're always reinforcing to them that you didn't just go out and take care of a dog walk today. Because you did that service, you also helped provide a meal to a local homeless pet. And with our clients, we always leave them a thank you card when they come home from a service to let them know that not only did you use our service to have amazing care for your pets, but let's say they traveled for a week and they had us come 3 times a day. You also provided 21 meals to a local homeless pet. So we always bring everything we do back to the mission and the purpose of why we do things. And every decision that we make is really, we make sure that it's always on mission, that all of the decisions that we make are on mission, and that we understand what we are really doing and what our purpose is.
And you have quite a few staff members that are on board with four-legged kids. How do you organize them and keep them focused and on mission? And what does that mean when they are doing their daily tasks for a pet sitter to be on mission working for you?
Well, I could always say it's like herding cats, right? Having the team being on mission, well, I guess the team right now that we have, I do have my general manager, I have an HR manager, I have our outreach and branding manager, and then we also do have an assistant scheduling manager in the office. And then the rest of the team, we have 3 full-time people, and it's embarrassing to say I don't know exactly how many because I'm not in the day-to-day hiring, because, our mission is always be hiring. We probably have 36 to 40 in the field. Actually, it's kind of embarrassing. You should have told me ahead of time to look that up so I would know actually how many.
Actual number will be in the show notes. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's entirely possible because I am currently on vacation this week that people have been hired while I am on vacation. I have completely not abdicated, but delegated the hiring to my amazing managers. They know what is required in our company. They work day to day, so they know the kind of skills and the kind of person that is going to be an amazing representative of four-legged kids. So I do give that to them. I give them the power to make those decisions, and empowering them, making sure that they have the right tools to do it. And we have an amazing HR system too. So, really with our team, it's so hard because there's probably very few in-home pet care services that have a central location where employees come to on a daily or even weekly basis to maintain those normal connections that you would have in a regular company where you're, in the break room, chit-chatting. So it's hard to take that autonomous team. We cover a 45-mile diameter service area. So taking that autonomous team and being able to connect them, that is super important to us. So, one of the ways that we do it is making sure that they are very well connected to what our mission is, and we're encouraging them. When we bring people on board, we want to find out what their love language is. We have them fill out personality profiles. So they do, let us know kind of what their favorite things are. We like to acknowledge people in the way they want to be acknowledged. So, if they like things to be public, we absolutely will acknowledge them in that way. Some people are more private and they just want, just a little bit of private encouragement. Some people, if anyone's read the book by Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, it's not like we physically touch people or anything like that. That would be awkward. But, we do have some employees who really their love language is gifts. So we do find out, do they have a favorite Starbucks drink? Had an employee who was having some medical issues, and on her little profile form, she said she loved lemon heads, which I did too. So that spoke to me. And so I drop shipped Amazon container of lemon heads to her to cheer her up. So, we're always trying to find ways to, even though we are so separate in our work environment, to bring the team together. And then always make sure that we have a focus on what our purpose is. And that really is servant leadership. I serve my managers. and my managers understand that their purpose is to serve our team and our community. And our team understands that their purpose is to serve our clients. So we just want to make sure that we have, everybody focused in one direction. So, this big old ship is rowing in the same way, because that's the way to really grow and move your company in one direction, is to make sure that everybody is speaking the same language.
Well, servant leadership is a way of doing that not by force, right? Not exerting power over somebody, but by coming alongside and leading by example and setting good authority in the company versus trying to wrench people in one direction. Because with the ship and size and complexity that you are helming here, you would be unable. That would be a constant struggle for you to do, and would just be exhausting at the end of the day.
Yeah, we do. And, we do have some situations where, managers will talk about it, where we're really trying to get somebody to row the same direction we are. And, part of that is making sure that we get people that are on board with our mission in the first place. That's a lot of our entire hiring system, is making sure that we're intentionally hiring for the ideal team player, which, nod to one of my books on my 50 list, The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. You can never have a conversation with me without me recommending a book. So if you are not a reader, I will get you to read. But
sounds like a threat.
I know, that just sounded a little wicked, doesn't it? It is just so important to me. I also do have, of course, my hiring series where I talk about, how important it is to make sure that you find the right person for your values in the first place.
I think it's really, really good to have those nailed down so that, like you keep saying, we make sure that we stay on mission, that our decisions stay in line with that. And the only way that we can do that is if we have thought through them, and we have them, and we are looking at them, and updating them and revising them, and making sure that we are aware of what they are. Because it is easier to go through life just picking and choosing and deciding and kind of going with the wind, but that's not what's going to give you longevity or give you the lifestyle that you want from your business.
Yeah. And I really think that, that conversation of mission, vision, and values, it has gone in and out of, quote, style in the business community. Seems like every 10 years, somebody's like, well, those are crap. You should do something different. Oh, no, you've got to have your mission, vision, and values. Well, to us, it is really important because it does keep us united. It used to be that, I would decide the mission, vision, and values, but it's so important to involve your team in that, because that does empower them in making that decision and creating the values of the company. Because if they have input into that, they are going to own that more so. And, we just recently went through this process again ourselves and created a visual for it, for our team. And, we actually have it on our About Us page on our website also, because we want our community to understand what our values are in our company and what we hire for. And, as I say, you want to have values that that you live by as a company, of course, that you hire for. If you have a certain value in your company and you're not hiring for that value, you need to create specific interview questions around that value to try to peg down whether or not that is the right person for your team and your culture. So, you need to hire by that. You need to fire by it. If somebody is, if team player is one of your values in your company, and you have somebody that is all about myself, and it's about my schedule, and it's about my life, and it's about what makes me happy, and they're not a team player, then you need to reconsider that as being the right person for your company. Promote by it. If you've got somebody who's a complete rock star and hits every single one of your value points, you need to make sure you acknowledge that person. You want to hold up the amazing things that your team members are doing that are values that you hold for your company, because you want to put that out there for other people to see what is important.
Building a profitable pet sitting business on your own can feel overwhelming. Since 1994, Pet Sitters International has helped over 40,000 people just like you start and grow their businesses. From access to group rate pet sitter insurance and discounts on background checks to free client handouts and a monthly member toolkit, PSI provides you with the credentials, continuing education, and community you need to grow your pet sitting business. You'll also be invited to join a private online network of other pet sitting business owners from around the world. Save $15 off your first year membership by using promo code PSC15 at checkout. Visit petsit.com/PSC to learn more. I know one of the things that you implement and that you are lock boxes, and I think that this is something that a lot of people have questions about in their business is how do I implement this? What makes a good lockbox protocol and workflow? So I think just to start off with, why should more people be considering lockboxes in their business?
I know. I feel like I've turned into like the cheerleader for lock boxes. I had put out training, which, I'm actually revising over lock boxes. We had probably made the transition, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago. And it was only because we have a specific subdivision that when it floods, you literally have to get to the subdivision by boat. And thankfully, we had a terrible flood, and we didn't have anyone traveling in that subdivision at that time, but there was one of our other subdivisions we did. And thankfully, there was still a rear entrance where we could get to the clients. But at that point, I said no more. Besides the fact that I was still horribly annoyed by having over 500 keys in the office and like, oh, well, our sitter went out of town and took the keys with her. So now I have to run a key from the office to my sitter who lives, 15 miles away and take my time to do that. Was always such a huge inconvenience. So we had decided that lock boxes were going to be our way to be able to provide that consistent service without worrying about implementation, how we were going to get those little keys around. Plus, there was nothing like that final day when we took all the key tags off and threw away all the rest of the keys that we had left over in the office. I mean, that was like the angels were singing, the heavens opened up. It was rainbows and unicorns because we have not had a key in the office since. Yeah. So, it's wonderful if you are looking into having a form of automated business to have those keys there on site at the owner's home, where no matter what, even if you have a subdivision that you can only get to by boat, you can contact their emergency contact and someone can still take care of those pets. So it is just another step in creating a business where you can ensure that no matter what goes on, that those pets will be well taken care of.
So whenever if maybe we've decided that that's something that we'd like to do, how do we go about communicating that change to clients and letting them know that this is in their best interest as well?
In our situation, I transitioned over very soon after that flood. So, with our situation, it was a very timely decision that we made. So when we first announced to our clients we were going to be doing that, we were able to point to that specific instance as to, this is why we're going to make this decision now, because it is going to guarantee that we can provide the, regular uninterrupted services to you. So, framing that conversation that is going to be a benefit and a safety and security feature for their home and their pets is huge when you're first communicating it. So in our situation, we did have a series of emails that we had sent out to communicate, of course, the purpose behind it, more than anything, what the benefit was going to be to the client having this lockbox service. There are so many different ways that you can roll out a service like this. Some companies choose to retain a secondary key in the office. Some do not. Some have lock boxes that they tell the owners to purchase. So it's owner lock boxes. Some companies will have lock boxes that you can rent. Some companies who already have sales tax licenses will sell lock boxes. So, so many different ways that you can have a lockbox program. But the great thing is always having the ability to access, especially if you are team pet care based, where you do have a team that services a specific house, that you can ensure no matter what the schedule is, what kind of a malfunction you might have in your schedule on that day, that you can send someone over there and they can access the home.
It is that access and that peace of mind. And, I think also communicating, owner keeps control over that. They keep, it stays on property, on site. So I know when we've had those conversations with clients, we haven't made that transition over to lockboxes yet. But when we have that conversation with clients, and if you've ever gotten pushback from them of going, "Ooh, I feel uneasy giving you a key," well, the lockbox is a nice solution at that time to introduce and say, "Hey, if you don't want me to have the key, that's fine. Here's another option that you can do," and start making the transition in that way.
Yes, I will get you 2 lockboxes, Colin.
It's on my to-do list for this year.
There you go. It's people, I know a lot of people are really resistant, and there are so many things in our businesses that we have a presumption of how people are going to react, whether it's team pet care, it's having lockboxes, all these different decisions that we make in our companies. We presume that, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose so many people if I raise my prices. There's all these presumptions that we have, and it's amazing how often they're just presumptions. The market doesn't respond the way that we presume they will. So, anyone that does have reservations because perhaps they think that, well, I don't know that I would like that. Well, you are not your client. So whenever you have a reason for a service that, is going to provide benefit to the client, then, absolutely put that out there and give it a try. And definitely lockboxes are something that the market has shown is completely acceptable. It makes clients' lives easier. It makes our lives easier. And above anything, we are there for the pets, and that does ensure consistent care for pets.
Now, what would you recommend to somebody who services a lot of apartments or private communities that limit or restrict the presence of lockboxes? For instance, I guess they'd still have to have key access that they keep in one location versus using them?
We do service the city of St. Louis, very large metro area, and we have not actually run across any situations where we don't have a workaround. We do deal with concierges in high rises. In a lot of cases, there would be a location outside of complexes where we can securely locate a lockbox. When we have fob access, sometimes the lockbox will have a fob located in it. There are, some situations that sometimes you have to work around. We have, if there's nothing you can attach a lockbox to, sometimes we have used a bike chain. There are the over door hangers that you can put lockboxes on, that will give you an attachment hook to put it on. If someone has a lever door, there are lockbox modifiers that you can use. So there are so many different options out there to find a workaround. I know in some metro areas, there are newer apartment buildings that are opening up that have caused, some extra issues for people. But, in those situations, really contacting management and figuring out the best way to work for it. And in our company, we won't not. That's a double negative. We will not take on a client that we cannot have keyless entry. So that is just a decision for our company that we will have to have that. So it's a commitment for us for consistency of service that we will not take on a client that we cannot have keyless entry with.
It's always an option to say no. And I think that's really important and good that you pointed that out, is that in all aspects of business, we can always choose to not take on that person or not serve them in the way that they're asking us to serve them if it doesn't fit in our operations. Because then we look up 5-10 years later and we've got all these little tiny exceptions and different ways of doing things and operating, and it's a mess. So that's part of, as you mentioned, staying on mission, staying on purpose, is staying consistent with how the company operates.
Yeah. I mean, it's really understanding your out of bound markers. And boundaries is such a huge, huge discussion in our industry because we love people, we love pets, we want to provide the service and the value to people. And I totally speak from experience. I was the yes woman. I would do anything. I would go anywhere. And it took a period of time for me to start realizing, wow, I really need to establish my, like if you're bowling, the bumper pads, I need those bumper pads. So, I have gradually developed my own boundaries over periods of time. And honestly, one of my boundaries is having management. Because, I have my gifts. I know what my gifts are and I know what they are not. So one of my own boundaries for myself is not trying to be what I am not and hiring for that gap. So, I encourage people to really take a look into like who you are and, what you stand for and what kind of boundaries that you need to have in your company and stand for those. And don't, if you're working solo right now, like you can make all sorts of excuses in the world as to why, no, I can go ahead and do that because it's just me. But go ahead and train your clients now for the boundaries that you want to have when you are at your goal. So always have that goal of where you want your company to be in your mind and be that company now.
Well, I think it's important, too, to set those boundaries of it is easy when you're a solopreneur to go, well, I'll do this because it's me, just like you said. But what happens if you put somebody else in that situation? Would you want them to do that? Would you want them to be spoken to that way? Would you want them to go through those hoops? Well, why aren't you treating yourself better? Why aren't you setting those now and just kind of externalize those thoughts and processes so that, as you said, whether you bring on somebody in the future or not, you're already setting up and you're making sure you're treating yourself better today. For you, I know one of these things as far as being busy and having lots of things on your plate, Janie, what does being productive mean to you in your days?
Yeah, that's always a great question. I work on productivity a lot because I am a clinical procrastinator. I always, I still say, I work best under pressure, which, yes, sometimes that can be the situation that, I do my best work when I am really focused and under pressure. But, productivity for me has been a complete process of course, educating myself, seeing what different options there are out there. Of course, you will find some of those books on my 50 book list, like Getting Things Done with David Allen. I've probably got some other, I think I have an entire productivity section on that book list. So that is a big thing. Anytime I see a weakness in myself, I, try to fill the gap by educating myself to learn better, do better. And, I really like to start my productivity plan on, Sundays. I get everything together Sunday evening for the week and I look at what my big goals are. And each day I have a planner that I like to work through. And, each day I have my big one thing, like what is the one thing that I can do that will make everything else easier? Which is the book called The One Thing, which is also on my 50 book list.
List to the book, a link to the book list in show notes.
Please, yes, put a note down there in your little piece of paper, a link to book list. So yes, I think that's Gary Keller's book, The One Thing. So I do like to have that, like, what is that one thing that I absolutely, no matter what, have to get done today to really move my projects and the important things forward. And then I have my big three also that I prioritize that I do also want to get done that day. So, I go through my list and believe me, to-do lists, I love check boxes. I love checking things off the list. Here lately it's multicolored highlighters, whatever floats your boat, right? So, I love that process of crossing things out and seeing things that are done to completion. But again, inside the busy days that I have, because, I have kids ranging from, 20 years old down to 2 years old next week. I have a lot of crap going on. So I will get so caught up in the day-to-day just busyness and the stuff that I do with family life in general and the business that I get to the end of the day and I'm like, what did I do today? Like the whole day seems like a complete blur. So I spend time at the end of my day really working with, that list, writing down my wins for the day. What did I accomplish? I'm very focused on gratitude. So I write down the 3 things that I was grateful for that day that really blessed me, even the small things that happen during the day, because we always have small blessings. It's whether or not we take the time to sit down and acknowledge them. So I like to write those down and review them throughout the week. And then I do my planning for the next day. What's my big one thing for the next day, and what are my top 3? So it's just really a cyclical process for me of planning and gratitude.
Mm. Well, and writing it down and tracking it and keeping and being intentional about what those are. Again, if you just kind of go with hither, tither, and yon, you'll never know where you're going, or you'll wake up and wonder where you are. And so having that list and posting it somewhere, or whether it's the sun visor of your car or at your desk or the background of your phone or whatever that is, to remind you, this is the purpose of what I'm working for today. These are things that are motivating me to get things done.
Oh, yeah. And being able to go back over those over the years, it's like you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought so small back then. Look how much I've grown, myself. I've grown my business knowledge. I've grown my company. And, you can just realize how small you were thinking. Like, wow, hitting, back at the beginning, it was like, wow, when I hit $50,000, I've really made it. And then, wow, when I have people working for me, I've really made it. And just the evolution, because I have notes from back then. When I first started my business, I have business planning and writing that I did back then. And I go back and I look at what my priorities were and how things change. And it just brings you right back to the gratitude.
Janie, I really want to thank you for our conversation and how you've encouraged us to look at those assessments, understand who we are, work on growth mindset, and be grateful for everything that we have and we're working towards. I know that there's actually a lot that you do, not just running a pet business and everything. So how can people get in touch, learn about everything that you have going on, and get access to more information?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you for this. Thank you for having me on. I mean, we covered a lot of subjects here. So this is a lot for people to go through. Yeah. I feel like, we've been just going off on tangents like chasing rabbits. So, I guess that fits with the industry, right? Squirrel. Yeah. So yes, I of course have I have a Facebook page, the Pet Biz Guru. I do, of course, do coaching for the industry, more so strategy, not so coaching. I'm not going to be the person that's just cheerleading you. I really like to look into people's businesses and figure out, where you are, help you unpack things so you can move your business forward in a strategic way. Probably the best way to connect with me, though, and find out what is going on is my podcast, The Pet Biz Hive, where I have tips that I put out on Tuesdays to help you move the needle in your business. And also I have the Pet Biz Hive private Facebook group where I do post weekly videos on a specific subject. I know coming up here on September the 27th, for those of you that have interest in lock boxes, I am going to have some specific training on how to implement lock boxes in your company. So you can keep an eye open for that. Just join the Pet Biz Hive on Facebook and we can make sure that you have that information and get registered.
Absolutely. More links in show notes. This will be probably one of the most diverse show notes links I've had. We've covered everything from books, personality tests, short circuit, and all sorts of stuff in between. So
oh my goodness. That one's just going to be known as the Johnny 5 chick, right?
Hey, but yeah, I will definitely make sure those links are on there and so people can get connected with you. Janie, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us and definitely look forward to having you back on in future episodes.
Oh, I'm grateful for you, Colin. You and Megan are amazing, and this is such a great resource for our community.
My biggest takeaway from my conversation with Janie was when she said, "You may have failed, but you are not a failure. I think it is so important as business owners, as we go out and we do things, we create things in the world, and we try and adapt our businesses, our policies, our services to meet people's needs, that it won't always be a raving success. But the success comes in the fact that we have learned a new way to not do something, or learned a better way to implement a current policy, and that it does not define us as a failure when something doesn't turn out the way we had hoped or expected. And that when we start reflecting on ourselves and defining ourselves by our successes or our failures, we drift further and further from who we are at the core. We want to thank our sponsors today, Time to Pet and Pet Sitters International, for making today's show possible. And we are so thankful for you, for listening, for sharing the show, for all of your feedback, and for being part of our Facebook community. Thank you so much for all that you do. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.